invite you to a deep breath. This has been a place of learning and worship this week with all of these folks that you just heard singing. And we have affirmed that what we do in worship matters for building up the community for its work in the world. And so I want to thank you, congregation, who gets to be in this amazing space every week. I want to thank you for your hospitality, for opening this space to the beautiful experience of all of these people this week. Shall we thank them, friends? Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Thanks to all the musicians. We're going to be hearing more from you, I know that. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a very special and musical Sunday here at First Unitarian Society, where independent thinkers gather in a safe and nurturing environment to explore issues of social, spiritual, and ethical significance as we try to make a difference in this world. I'm Steve Goldberg, a proud, music-loving member of this congregation, and I'd like to extend a special welcome to any guests, visitors, and newcomers, and I know we have quite a few of you today. As many of you have already found out, this is a special place. And if you would like to learn more about our special buildings, we do offer a guided tour after today's service. Just gather over here by the windows, and we'll take care of you. Speaking of taking care of each other, if you haven't already done so, this would be a great time to silence those pesky electronic devices that you simply will not need this morning because we have other sounds to appreciate instead. And while you're doing that, if you're accompanied by a youngster and you think that young person would rather experience the service from a more private space, we offer a couple options for you. One is our child haven in the back corner of the auditorium, and the other is some seating right outside the doorway in our commons from which you can enjoy and hear and see the service. As is the case every Sunday, our service is brought to us today by a wonderful group of volunteers. And just think, if you volunteer, someday your name will be read from the podium just like this. On the sound system, Alex Manville. Thank you, Alex. Tom Boykoff is our lay minister. Patty Whitty greeted us upstairs as we arrived earlier. Marty Hollis and Tom Dulmage are the ushers today. The all-important coffee is hosted after the service by Biss Nitschke and Nancy Kossoff. Thank you to Biss and Nancy. The flowers you see behind me were generously donated by John and Nancy Webster, and our tour guide will be Pamela McMullen. Just a couple announcements before we resume the service. And yes, it has come to this. First, we'd like to announce and remind you that at 1 o'clock this afternoon, you can join us for a solar workshop. The City of Madison has launched 2 solar energy programs designed to increase the use of solar energy by residents throughout our fair city. Under the Madison brand, residents can buy in together to save costs using solar energy. A loan program from Summit Credit Union is also available to help finance the projects. The group will meet in the Gabler living room, again, 1 o'clock this afternoon, free and open to the public. And the last announcement is that in addition to the UU musicians whom we've been hosting the last several days, all 3 candidates for the national UUA presidency have also been our guests the last several days. We know that Allison Miller is with us this morning, and possibly Jean Pupke is also here. The third candidate is definitely not here because she is speaking at the James Reeb congregation this morning. Her name is Susan Frederick Gray. So Allison and Jean, if you're with us this morning, please stand so we can recognize you. 1? Okay. Thank you for coming. She'll be available for conversation after the service. And with that, the announcements are over. We can resume the service. I invite you to sit back, or lean forward to enjoy today's service, I know that it will touch your heart, stir your spirit, and trigger one or two new thoughts. We're glad you're here.
The true joy of living lies in co-laboring, co-cooperating, co-creating together to advance a shared goal. For what larger purpose do we yearn and hope and work? How is hope bolstered when we share it in community? Our hopes and dreams for a better world can become reality as we stretch ourselves toward each man, woman, and child who makes up this richly variegated human family, and toward every sentient being that blesses the earth. Rooted in love, we have strength, the strength to make it through.
There are numerous streams in your lute. Let me add my own among them. I invite you to stand as you're comfortable standing for our song together.
We all have praise.
And so at this point, please turn to your neighbor and lean into them a little bit.
Invite you to greet
Good
one
morning.
another.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
I saw that.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Hi, Maureen. Good to see you. Hi, Susan.
You may be seated.
As the children's choir exits, any children among our members can leave for their summer fun program.
In December of 1273, when Rumi died, representatives of every major religion came to his funeral. In the midst of the Crusades and violent sectarian conflict, he said, "I go into the Muslim mosque and the Jewish synagogue and the Christian church, and I see one altar, one. And so come with me now with spirit footsteps, for this is the journey. The way is full of genuine sacrifice. The thickets blocking your path are anything that keeps you from that. Any fear that you may be broken into bits like a glass bottle. The road demands courage and stamina, and yet it is full of footprints. Who are these companions? They are rungs in your ladder. Use them. With company, you may quicken your ascent. You may be happy enough to go along, but with others, you will go farther and faster. Someone who goes cheerfully by himself to the customs house to pay his traveler's tax will go even more lightheartedly if friends are with him. Every prophet sought out companions. A wall standing alone is useless, but put 3 or 4 walls together and they will support a roof and keep grain dry and safe. When ink joins with pen, then the blank paper can say something. Rushes and reeds must be woven to be useful as a mat. If they weren't interlaced, the wind would blow them away. And like that, God paired up creatures and gave them friendship.
So, all during our time together, we've been doing something called creating from scratch. We've been emphasizing in our worship the things we can do together that we cannot do alone. And so we thought we'd invite all of you to join us in that. And this morning we're going to create a song that will only ever exist in this one little moment. So I invite you to stand as you're comfortable standing and turn and face the center here. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. Just that. bum, bum, bum. Y'all over here, you get to go. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. Ba-da-dum, ba-dum. Ba-da-dum, ba-dum. Ba-da-dum, ba-dum. Ba-da-dum, ba-dum. Ba-da-dum, ba-dum. Balcony, you're with me. That, my friends, was a co-laboration.
Haitian.
Co meaning together.
Labor meaning to work.
Ation meaning to move.
Together, we work and move toward each other.
Toward the good.
Toward the just.
Toward the right.
Right relationship.
Ship.
Relation meaning to bring back together again.
Ship meaning sailing across the waters.
No, not really.
Ship meaning state of being.
In the state of being brought back together again. Intentionally engaged in radical co-laboration.
We have caught ourselves in the act of intentionally engaging in collaboration.
Plucking the strings of our individual expression.
And noticing the reverberations.
And the incantations.
And obliterations of separation.
That happens when we play together.
What if we kept strumming, plucking, playing?
And listening to the sounds we make together.
Catching ourselves in the action of radical.
Meaning radish.
Meaning root.
Meaning common roots.
Radical.
Radical.
Radical collaboration
For the healing of the world.
Too many tough acts to follow. Jeez. I began my ministry here in Madison, Wisconsin in 1988, almost half a lifetime ago. And aside for a little detour to earn my doctoral degree, I had at that point in 1988 already accumulated 10 years of parish experience, 7 of them in Binghamton, New York. And I must tell you that I needed every hour of those 10 years to achieve even a modicum of competency, because from the very beginning, quite frankly, ministry was for me a somewhat awkward fit. But fortunately, I received some valuable mentoring from colleagues during those early years. And one man in particular, a man named John A. Taylor, Jack Taylor. He served the church just up the road from Binghamton in Ithaca, New York. Now, his ministerial path had not always been a smooth one, but Jack's years at the corner of Aurora and Buffalo Streets, where the Unitarians gathered in this picturesque college town, those years had been unusually productive and gratifying. And thus, Jack became for me a reliable and trusted source of support and of insight. Now, the man himself had a lot to do with that congregation's success, because Jack was an incomparable preacher. He was truly gifted, but he also worked very, very hard at his craft. An hour of preparation for every minute of delivery. That was his rule of thumb. Jack firmly believed that the health and the vitality of any faith community rested largely on the commitment to excellence of its clergy. And his was the Lone Ranger model of ministry, and he made no apology for it. He even spelled it out in a lengthy essay that he shared with a number of his colleagues. Now, on this particular subject back then, Jack Taylor may have been more candid, more upfront than others of his generation, but he was hardly the exception. Because concepts like shared ministry, radically collaborative ministry, would have made very little sense to Jack and members of the Old Guard. Indeed, an underlying suspicion of and cynicism toward congregants and co-workers alike was not uncommon when I entered this profession. A Machiavellian view of the ministry by Brandy Lovely was a reading assignment that I received while studying at Starr King's School for the Ministry. In any event, this was one aspect of Jack's mentoring that I eventually did come to question. It goes without saying that faith communities of any size and any complexity do require competent professional clergy in order to function at a high level. But without ongoing, dependable investments of time and energy from able support staff and empowered laity, our UU churches eventually become little more than hollowed-out shells. As the organizational consultant Douglas Johnson put it, most congregations can exist during a clergy person's vacation, at times of his or her illness, or during the weeks and months between clergy presence. Churches do not close simply because a professional minister is not around. But on the other hand, he says, no church can exist for even a month without its volunteers. It is somewhat surprising to me that Jack Taylor and more than a few of his peers eschewed shared ministry because volunteers working in concert with clergy and support staff have always figured prominently in this country's congregational life. Now, roughly 50% of Americans report that they regularly participate in some kind of voluntary activity, twice the rate of other industrialized countries. Quite often, faith communities provide the context and also the impetus for that voluntary engagement. And the religiously committed, all of you, actually invest more of yourselves in other volunteer roles than those who are unchurched. And historians tell us that this was one of colonial America's most notable departures from European practice. When Alexis de Tocqueville came from France in the 1830s to observe life here in the United States, he was amazed by its vibrant civic culture, the plethora of organizations established and maintained not by professionals, but by cadres of collaborating volunteers. Citizens in the Old World, they typically lacked the motivation for this kind of service. They had no choice in matters of faith most of the time, being required by law to submit to the religion of the realm. But here in America, a pluralistic and a highly competitive religious culture arose. And here, the success or the failure of any given sect often depended on the level of commitment of its subscribers as much, if not more, than on the preacher's persuasiveness. Now, outside of the church, out in the secular world, early American businessmen and artisans contributed time and resources to causes that were socially beneficial because these investments, they believed, would give them a leg up in the marketplace. It was presumed that appreciative citizens would be more likely to return the favor and patronize those establishments that were less self-aggrandizing and more civic-minded. And so as a result of these two important forces, sacred and secular, volunteering became a habit of the heart, as Robert Bellah once characterized it. And we are still living today with that legacy, and it continues to inform our thinking and to factor into our daily decisions. And yet, for all of that, the impetus to serve is not as strong as it once was. Since 1975, Robert Putnam reports, overall rates of participation in voluntary enterprises have suffered a significant decline, especially among those in the 30 to 60 age bracket. And this shift may well reflect the increasing demands that modernity places upon all of us, particularly those in midlife. More hours of work are now required to support a family. Maintaining larger, better-equipped homes takes more time. And then there is, of course, the constant pressure to engage in leisure and consumption-oriented activities. Though it's understandable, these trends are troubling because this country's social cohesion, this country's civic health has always been closely connected to the selflessness of its citizens. And so to the extent that service clubs, neighborhood associations, faith communities, environmental groups, food pantries, blood drives, to the extent that these kinds of efforts can no longer depend on voluntary service, our entire common life begins to suffer. The culture comes to be defined not by the strength of its social capital, but by the individual pursuit of short-term private advantage. So how might we reverse that trend? For anything to happen, there must first be a dream, Robert Greenleaf writes. And for anything great to happen, there must be a great dream. Now, a dream, Greenleaf continues, provides something, in his words, that lifts people's sights above the ordinary and gives them something to strive for. And if that dream is clear and compelling enough, the members of a community will not need to be arm-twisted into pursuing it. People will want to work together as part of a movement that they believe can make a positive difference and produce important social dividends. Now, another word for a dream is a vision. And many of our UU congregations have worked hard to craft captivating, engaging vision statements. Quite a few of them probably sound like this. This is a generic one. It's not particularly ours here at FUS. First Church endeavors to create a caring community that works together to love, support, and learn from one another. Moreover, we intentionally strive to reach out and partner with others to realize our own commitment to social, economic, and environmental justice. Now, if we have been captured by a dream or a vision such as this, we will not consider our involvement as some kind of call to duty entailing painful personal sacrifice. The work that we freely do in partnership will feel enriching rather than depleting, engaging rather than grudging. Because this is the true joy in life. George Bernard Shaw once said, "This is the true joy in life, to be used for a purpose recognized by you as a mighty one, to be used by a purpose that is for you a mighty one." This is the true joy in life. Note Shaw's use of the word joy. There are plenty of ways that a person can experience pleasure or gratification, transitory satisfaction, but joy is something else again. And if Shaw's words are to be credited, joy has much more to do with giving than with receiving. And Robert Bella echoes that assertion. Most modern human beings, Bella says, strive for two things in life: success and joy. Quite often, people incorrectly assume that the second, joy, is a function of the first, success. That joyful living is contingent upon success. And so we build up a business. We gain tenure. We attain a high office. We finish a marathon. We feel our spirit rise, and we are able perhaps to say with conviction that life is as good as it gets. We are successful. But that's not exactly how joy works. Important as it is, success-oriented behavior, being ego-centered, doesn't provide human beings with what they really need to feel deeply gratified. Joy is other-centered. As Robert Bella writes, joy is associated with the expressive ideal of a union of similar individuals bound together by spontaneous ties of love, where people collaborate and their purposes reinforce rather than undercut one another. Now, joy, in the sense that I'm using it today, doesn't mean euphoria. It doesn't mean inflated feelings of a similar variety. It suggests personal and interpersonal fulfillment, the sense of being at peace with oneself and meaningfully connected to others. That's what joy is all about. The Arbinger Institute is a worldwide consulting and coaching organization. And one aspect of the Arbinger Institution's work is to help other institutions, whether they be educational or corporate, to move workers in those organizations from an inward mindset to an outward mindset in order to establish a more collaborative and mission-centered climate and culture. That is their mission. Now, too often, the Arbinger Institute says, institutions are hamstrung because participants typically look first to their own personal interests or to the interests of a particular subunit, subsidiary, or silo to which they happen to belong. And so they habitually turn inward, largely ignoring the needs and the objectives and the aspirations of others that serve the same organization. Inward-minded people do things, the Arbinger Institute says. Outward-minded people and organizations help others to do things for the sake of institutional prosperity and to ensure that success is widely shared. The Institute cites as an example the San Antonio Spurs professional basketball team, coached by Greg Popovich. As members of a team that has for years remained dominant in the National Basketball Association without the benefit of very many big-name stars, Spurs players are required by their coach to adopt an outward mindset. I want players who have gotten over themselves, Popovich says. They have to care about each other. They have to be interested in each other. They have to feel an obligation to help each other get better. That's the San Antonio Spurs' secret, the secret to their success and to their joy. Now, although they did not use the same terminology, the ancient Greeks had something similar in mind when they contrasted animal work to human work. The first, animal work, involves the tasks that all of us must do to survive, that are necessary, but they're often onerous and often thankless. Animal work is obligatory, lacking the important elements of freedom and dignity that can make that work more joyful. Human work has less to do with earning a livelihood, with surviving, than composing a life. If animal work provides security, human work assures us of our relevance, a matter of no small consequence. And volunteerism is quintessential human work. The very word voluntary, Robert Coles tells us, comes from the Latin root velle, which means to wish or to have a dream. As volunteers, we embrace and we act upon a common, compelling vision for our community or for the larger world. Not just the province of Lone Rangers. Ministry is and ought to be everybody's business. May we all continue to find joy in the work we perform together, the dream that we share together, and the inclusive, loving community that we are creating together. Blessed be, and amen. Our offering this morning features a contemplative original composition, but to enhance the mood of what you're about to hear, we will not be passing the collection baskets. So please leave your gifts in the glass receptacles that are outside the doors in the Commons and in the upper crossing after the service. And then please note that after the offering music, we will not be sharing congregational cares, but we'll move directly to our closing hymn. would you please turn to your program to read our closing words together? It's up there too. Here's to co-laboring together for a better world for all. Here's to cooperating together for a better life for all. Here's to co-creating together, for it is our birthright and our responsibility. So be it. Please be seated for the postlude.
Of all the feelings that a young person can have, there is one perhaps most important: hope. Hope for the future. Hope to be loved. Hope to be heard. We must never underestimate the power of giving our children hope.